All right, so Rob Talks Hockey just did a nice video about maybe a potential another scoring boom in the NHL. Um, this isn't a surprise after the news of Matthews scoring 71 goals in the last 82 games, 51 goals in the last 50 games is crazy, but almost not surprising at this point. We got guys like Connor McDavid and Draisaitl who are consistently up there. Ovechkin's still mid 40 goal pace, potential 50 goal scorer at his age. Kreider's approaching 50 goals this year. So this is like, we're seeing a scoring boom at the moment, at least compared to the last couple decades. Why is that? Well, essentially, back in the 80s and such, the point was to outscore the opponent, and we were seeing crazy scores. It was like the average was like 8 goals a game or something. Again, Rob Talks Hockey does a great analysis of this. I highly recommend you go check out his video. I'll leave the link below. But this is kind of an extension of that video. So I wanted to look at defensive players and kind of how it relates to the 80s versus now, because it seems like defense has kind of gone out the window to an extent in the NHL nowadays, which is kind of reminiscent of like the 80s and like even early 90s. So kind of to get it started out, we got this season, we have 10 players over, and I did .85 as the cutoff, points per game. So Yossi leading the way with 1.24 points per game. Makar 1.13, Fox, Hedman, Ekblad, Carlson, Letang, Taves, D'Angelo, and Morgan Riley. It's notable that every one of these players is on a different team with the exception of Makar and Taves, who play on the same line. So it's notable. So that's a lot of players over .85 points a game for defensive players. Even going back last season, kind of an unconventional season, but you had Makar was at 1 goal or 1 point a game. You had Barry at .86, Fox and Carlson at .85. That's only 4 guys as opposed to 10 guys. And there are guys that played like Ryan Ellis played like 4 games this year, and he was at 1.25. I didn't include him. Guys that have really played more than half the season. Really most of the entire season I included because it's a larger sample size. But then going back to 2017-2018, one guy, Erik Karlsson, .87 points a game, which is great, but Erik Karlsson on Ottawa and in San Jose is considered an offensive defenseman. Doesn't play on the penalty kill, doesn't take a lot of faceoffs in his own offensive zone. Very similar to Cale Makar. I think Cale Makar's defensive ability is a little better than Erik Karlsson's, but at the same time, doesn't play much time on the penalty kill, doesn't take off or face-offs in his defensive zone. He's almost never on the ice for those, unless it's like an icing call or something. So similar, but and Fox is kind of in that category too. Not so much, but you got Yossi, can play defense. Hedman can play defense. Ekblad can play defense. Carlson can play defense. I think Carlson's kind of underrated. I know underrated is a sensitive term because he was nominated for a Norris Trophy not too long ago, but I think he's still overlooked quite a bit. He's one of the elite defensemen in the league. Letang, good defensively. Taves, pretty good defensively. D'Angelo, he's working on it. He could be worse. Morgan Riley's pretty good defensively. So you got a lot of two-way forwards that are really focusing a lot on offense. The difference is being a lot of these guys have been in the league, but we haven't seen them put up that point production in previous years. Defensive players are becoming more aggressive in the offensive zone. That's the way the game is evolving. There's a lot of skill players. It is what it is. The game's just evolving, and these players are capitalizing on that. The downside is it often leads to more breakaways in their defensive zone. So you got a lot of goals going both ways. You got Yossi just taking shots, driving to the net, but if he misses or turns it over, you're down one of your best defensive players. It's probably going to be a 2-on-1 rush, depending on where the other guy is. It could just be a full-on breakaway for the other team, which could result in a goal. It's a high-scoring chance play. So we're seeing a lot of that. For Bruins fans, because I do a lot of Bruins content, a prime example of that would be Charlie McAvoy. Drives into the offensive zone a lot. He has a tendency to turn the puck over almost every time when he drives into the offensive zone. So there's that. So he's not on this list. I don't know if he'll ever be on this list, but he turns the puck over and then he's a defensive liability. So that's kind of a relation for Bruins fans. If McAvoy was to produce more in the offensive zone, maybe, I don't know, his skating's good. He's got to work on his puck handling and his vision when he's in the O zone, because it just needs a little work. So anyway, so we got Karlsson, 2013-2014. Erik Karlsson is the lone wolf again, over 0.85 points a game at 0.9. Going back to 07-08, we had one guy, Nicholas Lidstrom. Dude was a tank, 0.92 points a game. And then we start diving into the 90s, right? 95-96, you got five guys, Leach, Zubov, Ray Bourque, Coffey, and Chris Chelios, all of which are Hall of Famers. I think all of them have had their numbers retired too. So just, interesting of note. Then we go to the 80s where it's back up to 7. You got Coffey, Bourque, Potvin, Housley, Maxwell, McInnes, and Wilson. And Paul Coffey with 1.58 points a game. That's like Connor McDavid numbers last season. But, that's where we're trending essentially. And then you look, Yossi's at 1.24 points a game. Second place in the 80s was Ray Bourque with 1.23. I mean, you're talking about a hundredth of a point per game. But we'll see if Josi can pass Ray Bourque in that aspect. That would be incredible. I think Josi can do it. We'll see. It's going to come down to the final point, clearly, but it's interesting. So, kind of my take for this is a lot of defensemen coming up are focusing on the skill aspect as opposed to defensive play. Now, defense is important. It'll always be important, but nowadays, teams are drafting that versatile two-way defenseman. They're not drafting pure defensive defensemen. They're not going as high in the draft. A Bruins perspective would be Brandon Carlo, who was a second-round pick. He's a stay-at-home defensive defenseman. He's not driving the offensive zone. He's not scoring a lot. It's just maybe in the early 2000s he would be a top a first-round pick, but, the game has changed, and the way GMs are drafting has significantly changed as well. And it's really, points are a good indicator as to who's going to win the Norris. It's not so much defensive play, and there's a reason I don't have plus-minus up here is because a lot of these, it's all over the place. You got Devon Taves, who has probably the best plus-minus in the league. And then you got other guys that are not even in the same category. But then again, if I was to take Devon Taves over Hedman, I'd probably take Hedman. I think Hedman's significantly better on the defensive end than Taves. But then you got guys like Cale Makar, who provides almost no value defensively. Great guy. He's fun to watch. He's an incredible skater. He's got speed. He can get back in the defensive zone. But at the same time, he's not there to play defense. That's not his job. And he's a Norris candidate every year. He's still the favorite to win the Norris this year. You got guys like Roman Josi, who has been a little bit of a defensive liability this year. He's really good, very much like Hedman. They're both very good at playing that two-way game. But, Josi is driving into the offensive zone significantly more this season and partially last season than in years prior. As a result, his point production's up, which is good for him. He's now in the Norris talks, as he should be. But, you got guys like Fox, who comes into the league and wins a Norris trophy, and it's mostly based on point production as opposed to his play in the defensive zone. When you're playing most of your minutes with guys like Panarin and Zibanejad, points are going to come. Again, the Chris Kreider example, not a 50-goal scorer, when you're on the power play with guys like Zibanejad and Panarin, and half of your goals come on the power play, there you have it. You're a 50-goal scorer because those guys are that good. Fox, good in the offensive zone, good at moving the puck, but like Makar, can be a defensive liability at times, and it's an issue the Rangers have had, and is the ability to play defense and take less pressure off of Igor Shesterkin, because he's been an all-star, an MVP this season, and you can't just rely on your goaltender for the rest of his career. That's not sustainable. So just some insight. I think to summarize, the scoring boom is partially due because of skilled players coming up, but because of the way GMs are drafting and the way players get paid, essentially, Makar, all these players, nice large contracts because of their point production. The defensive defensemen don't get paid as much. Points also win you trophies. They just do. Are we going to see Slavin be in the conversation for Hart Trophy this year in Carolina? Probably not. Is he one of the best defensemen in the league? No doubt he should be. He should be in the Norris talks for the way he's such a good defensive player. Yet we're going to get guys like, I don't know. You take your pick of these top 4 guys: Yossi, Makar, Fox, Hedman. 3 of those guys are going to be Norris finalists. So take with that what you will. But because of that aggressiveness, because of the way the league is evolving, we're not seeing defense as prioritized as it has been in years past. Maybe this brings the trap back. That would be cool. Hopefully not, because that's super boring. But at the same time, we'll see. But yeah, it's kind of my little insight and input as to why scoring has kind of taken off as it has the last couple of years. Take with that what you will. I don't think it's here to. I think it's here to stay. I think we're going to continue to see these incredible scoring feats be met. I think these numbers will continue to improve into the following seasons. I think goal scorers will continue to score more goals. We'll see a lot more points going into future seasons as well. I don't know at what point does it peak. This is, the beginning of a scoring boom, essentially. And, Rob Talks Hockey, again, does a great job laying that all out. I highly recommend you go check him out. Check out that video. Again, leaving the link below. It's interesting. It's fun. It's kind of an exciting time to be a hockey fan, because we're seeing these players and then all of a sudden they're all exploding into these great offensive numbers. All right. That's it for now. Let me know what you guys think. Just a little fun video. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care, all right?